Who is Ram? Written by Chinky Sinha. Ram kaun hai? A human ideal, a romantic husband, a god, a political tool? On who we want him to be depends our collective future. Once I asked my mother, who will now build the stairways to heaven? People will, my mother said, in time. Ravan went up in flame that evening at Gandhi Maidan in Patna. This was many, many years ago. A stampede ensued. That was the only time I went to witness this violent act. Mother had told me once that Ravan was building a ladder that would make heaven accessible to everyone. Was he a socialist? I asked. My mother said, so you could say so. They say Ram was tired midway and the project was shelved. But that was a fantastic idea, an idea that espoused egalitarianism and broke the myth of the heaven as a place reserved only for the pious. A kind of gated colony, the haves and the have nots, the old persistent divide. What constituted dharma then? This I asked my mother several times. She said beyond the ideas of sin, piety, and moksha, there are enduring ideas of love and hope. She then cautioned me not to trust narratives, but to ask questions, always. That's why I'm telling you these stories, she said. When I asked her who Ram is, she said he was Vishnu's seventh avatar, who came to earth to establish utopia. He was a man who followed dharma, went to exile, and later denounced his wife Sita because he was the king and his people doubted her character after she was abducted by Ravan. Did Ram miss Sita? My mother said she thought he did. He shouldn't have left her, she said. That was a woman's reading of the Ramayana, my mother's. This was in the 80s in Bihar, when stories were the only way to entertain ourselves. TV wasn't so pervasive and the world wasn't so small. In that great big world, there was space for many renditions of this mythological tale, and that seems to have become history now. In order to understand how we interpret literature, including the epics, it is imperative to understand where we come from. Sita, my mother, told me was born in Bihar. She said she was born from the earth when a drop of Ravan's sweat fell. There was an accompanying prophecy. Ravan's end would come when he would desire Sita. Did Ravan know Sita was his daughter? I asked. He didn't, she said. None of the girls I knew in school or college were named Sita. The name, my mother said, can bring about faith of abandonment to the bearer. Hence, there are no Sitas. But in Bihar Sitamarhi, there is a temple dedicated to Sita, perhaps the only one anywhere. That's how we preserve the memory of a mythological character. Bihar has never let go of Sita, even in the face of the Ram campaign. My mother still writes Jai Siya Ram in a notebook. In the temple in the neighborhood, women get together, sing bhajans, and prefix Sita before Ram. Ram's abandonment of the Sita is a story we never forgot. Her sacrifice was bigger than any. That's how we entered the Ramayana through Sita. She said there are many stories and points of entry, like in the Mahabharata. It could be the story of Karan, Draupadi, or Shikhandi. I am telling you the possibilities I know of, she said. My Ramayana is then a composite of many stories told to me by men and women around me. It was a beautiful story, like magic realism. Ravan had an aeroplane too. He would even order the moon to change its position. Ram touched a stone and it became a woman called Ahalya. But all this was challenged by a reductive reading and a broadcasting of a TV series called Ramayan in the late 80s that reiterated a single narrative which limited the scope of any other interpretation. That was the time when mythology entered political sphere and Ayodhya became the geographical node of the preservation of nation and culture. That's how othering became a norm. Not that it wasn't there before all this, but it gained momentum and eventually got state sanction. The Hindu right wing utilized the reverential power of epic, reduced and appropriated. The question is, how are we asked to read it and interpret it? When I asked my mother, she said nobody reads, neither the various Ramayana nor the Constitution or anything else. You have your own Ramayana, she said. Nostalgia is power. The TV serial showed us a grand court in Ayodhya, a way to become an ideal man, a way to conquer with the Ashwamedha horse let loose, a way to sacrifice everything to protect Dharma, to even build a bridge so that a kingdom could be destroyed. They showed us the promise of the past, and we bought the idea. We paid a cost. We lost our Ram somewhere in the frenzied reimagination of this character. I remember the calendar back then that showed him with his palm facing us as if he was blessing us, unlike the weaponized version that's so omnipresent now. This was our most loved story, the story of the good over evil, like a Dickensian plot, like a morality play. The truth, my mother said, is never absolute. Ram is a tragic hero, Ravan is a rebel, Sita is a feminist, and so on. All This and Ram came to us packaged in a 78 episode TV series telecast on Sunday morning from January 25, 1987 to July 31st, 1988 on the national broadcaster. Directed by Ramanand Sagar, it appeared around a time when the country was witnessing a resurgence of Hindu nationalism. Ramayana instantly became an important focus of devotion for millions. I remember the old bush TV we had, on which we watched the TV series on Sundays, and neighbors came to watch Lord Rama's good deeds with folded hand. They would have taken a shower before and even offered flowers to the TV set. My mother would subtly embark on a course correction. She would say Ravan didn't touch Sita. He waited for her consent. He had been angered because his sister Suparnakha's nose, ears, and breast had been cut by Lakshman because she had wanted either him or Ram to marry her. That was a case of disproportionate punishment, I said. The way Sagar portrayed Suparnakha, where the actor had been padded to look big and had black paint all over her face with protruding teeth to give us a version of Asur, demons who knew no morals, differed from my mother's rendition. She said Suparnakha was very beautiful and a widow. Are widows supposed not to remarry? I asked. Patriarchy is our inheritance, like the apex. In school, we were beginning to read about reform movements like widow remarriage. The world order was changing. Morality, too, is a question of time, my favorite author, Marquez, had once said. That's how we formed our versions of Ramayana. In our era, in our context, there are many Ramayanas out there, of scholars, poets, saints, and those that belong to us. They say ideas aren't copyrighted. Ramayana is also an idea. To me, the melancholy of Suparnakha was also the story of Ramayana. She opposed the prescribed way of life for women. She wanted revenge because she had been punished. Her desire to remarry hadn't been so courageous out there. Ramayana, the TV series, presented an idea that a Hindu world was menaced by demons. The Babri Masjid on the site of the alleged birthplace of Ram in Ayodhya was demolished by Hindu nationalists on December 6, 1992. The resulting riots left thousands dead. That year I encountered my first curfew. That year I saw fear firsthand. That year I saw how easily we alienated others. I remember that from the loudspeakers, the name of gods blared through the days and night. Jai Sri Ram instead of Jai Siya Ram, that we used to say. Fire, smoke, and a lot of police. In 1990, L.K. Advani had started his Rath Yatra in Somnath, Gujarat, and planned to enter it in Ayodhya by laying a foundation stone for the construction of the Ram temple at the Babri Masjid site. On October 23rd, the Rath, an AC bus, entered Bihar despite warning from then Chief Minister Lalu Prasad Yadav, who had been sworn in just 7 months earlier. The slogan had been "Kasab Ram ki khate hain, mandir yahi banegi." Lalu's argument was that the Rath Yatra would incite riots. In the wee hours of October 24, 1990, Advani was detained at Samastipur by Lalu's government. The 11-month-old National Front government led by VP Singh collapsed after BJP withdrew support. Many things happened in the aftermath. But who is Ram? That we forgot to ask ourselves. We took the version of the Ram in the serial. The appropriation began with the previous Congress government broadcasting the serial when the Muslim Women's Bill was being drawn up after the Shah Bano case. And with the opening of the Babri Masjid in 1986, the BJP profited from what the Congress had started. I remember the visuals of the Karsevaks dressed like Ram, Lakshman, and Hanuman in the TV serial. The Rath was modeled after what was shown in it. The series was telecast again during the COVID-19 lockdown. Millions again watched it. There is an insistence on that Ramayana. We live in an era of Hindu awakening. It doesn't take time to transform from devotional to political, as we witnessed with the serial. The first major departure from the secular consciousness. Is this Ramrajya? This I asked my mother. There's a lot of inflation and other bad news on TV, she said. I'm retelling a story from my childhood in the hope that it might alter the present. I'm being ambitious. They say don't take the name of God in vain. But I grew up with Ram. I don't fear my God. I remember I had wanted Marni, her mother, our neighborhood tailor Idrish Mia, and his children to go to heaven. They were poor and had never had enough food to eat. Heaven would have food at least. Many years later, Idrish Mia killed himself by laying down on the rail track. Marni worked at our house. They were Dalits. There would be no stairways to heaven. There is no heaven or hell. There are stories in us. In Bihar, we always celebrated the victory of goddess Durga over Mahisasur. I finally found an answer in a remote village in Asur tribe in Jharkhand recently. We are dark skinned, we are human too. Mayusasur was our ancestor. Shushma Asur, a poet from the tribe, said, them and us over them, all this and more. Gods and demons, Aryans and Dravidians, men and women, pitched against each other in eternal battle. Is there any redemption? The tribals gave me an answer. There is no heaven or hell. We don't believe in a better place than earth after death. We live with our dead. Jacinta Karkata, another tribal leader, said, my Ramayana is a story of many people who make certain choices. The story is of love and loss and a dream called utopia, abandoned when Ram took Samadhi in River Sarayu. Perfection is always an illusion. To achieve it and sustain it is an endless saga of wars. We don't need no more wars. My Ramayana is a story of struggle against society's imposed morality, of kings and queens who are product of their circumstances and choices. It is my story. It is our story. The issue is a compilation of some of those stories and some of those characters and an attempt to not reduce them to a singular narrative. That's always dangerous.